To this now, the South African Social Security Agency Chief Executive Officer Mr. Themba Matlou is briefing members of the media about the ongoing reviews of social grants. These reviews focus on targeted beneficiaries suspected of having undisclosed additional sources of income. Let's listen in.
Additionally, we are finalizing the implementation of biometric identification infrastructure to enhance security and integrity in the grant administration process. While we are mandated by the Act to review social grants, we are also operating in a space where we have to adhere to the National Treasury's recent budget allocation conditions. In February 2025, National Treasury issued SASSA with a preliminary allocation letter for 2025 MTEF period. National Treasury, in their allocation letter, contained compliance framework with strict conditions, which the agency need to put in place since they become binding and form part of the approved budget allocation for 2025 financial year. These conditions directed SASSA to find a mechanism to save cost through review process to ensure money is not paid to those that are undeserving beneficiaries, also to enhance the fiscal accountability, improve operational efficiency, and to ensure that the integrity of social assistance program. They cover critical areas such as the income verification, biometric checks, interagency data cross-referencing, and also quarterly reporting obligation back to National Treasury. The conditions also reflect that Treasury intends to strengthen oversight and promote transparency in the administration of social grants. SASSA is fully committed to transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement of social grant system. We take our responsibilities seriously to serve the most vulnerable in our society, and will work harder to ensure that no beneficiary is left confused and disadvantaged. SASSA remain committed to protecting the rights and the dignity of each beneficiary by ensuring that no one who qualifies is unfairly penalized. Our efforts are directed at preserving the social assistance system for those who genuinely need it. For more information, you can contact our website, our call center number 0800 60 10 11. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was the CEO of SASSA, Mr. Themba Matlou. I'm now going to open questions. I think I'll start here, then we'll go to Cape Town. You'll be the first one. You are very close to me. Hloni Zuniko. Okay. Let me take this thread, then I'll go to Cape Town. You can go ahead.
When you talk about beneficiaries that are eligible, we've got some beneficiaries who, for example, would receive maybe 2,000 Rand, 3,000 Rand from family members every now and then. Are they in trouble in terms of not actually coming forward to say, I am receiving this money, even though it may not be consistent every month? Do you see that as a source of income?
Okay. Tony?
Thanks for that question. From ENCA. CEO, you talk about not wanting to leave any of the beneficiaries confused, but just in terms of this verification process, it does seem that there is still confusion, because there are people who say that they have been verified but they're still not receiving, and there's just confusion around that, and also that they've gone to verify but that their information was then not verified and they were still told that they are offline. So there does still seem to be a lot of confusion. You also place a lot of emphasis on the beneficiaries themselves in terms of what needs to be done, but very little talking about the role that the SASSA, the entity, plays, and also your staff as well. We've seen some interesting behavior from some officials where they're sending people away and people are standing in lines for a long time. What role do you play as SASSA in ensuring that your queues are managed better and that people are served when they should be?
Good morning, Zinoko Mhlaba from Newsroom Africa. I just want to get a sense of, in terms of the fraudulent incidents SASSA has picked up over the months. Can you share more details in terms of how many people from within the institution have been identified and what steps have been taken? But also the issue of collaborating with credit companies. What forms of agreements are there in place? And then to add on what my colleague from Kaya talked about, if you've got a Tandega somewhere in Ditchlut who has a child with a Ziniko, and Ziniko is supporting that child on a monthly basis, how much is that a form of income from the requirements SASSA has in place? It's an annual or it's a monthly income that comes through for the child, but for the mother, not for the mother rather. So how does that fit in terms of the broader context and requirements of an income that is likely going to reflect through the bank account of the mother? Thank you.
Oh, will be the fourth one.
Good morning. I am Oratile Mashilo from the Citizen newspaper. I want to know how many people were flagged for the review, and of those, how many were removed from the list of grant recipients, and on average, how many people are paid a month on this fourth payment date.
Thank you very much, CEO. I suggest we respond and then we'll open for our colleagues in Cape Town.
Thank you once again, colleagues. I will then try to give clarity in some of the questions, and my colleagues will also come in. Solufelo, SASSA, we pay two types of grant. There's normal grant, and also remember the recent we used to call it COVID grant, which is, we call it a social relief. And with the normal grant, normally, especially on the CSG, Children's Support Grant, it is the primary caregiver who normally applies, the parent. So the means test will be against the primary caregiver, will not be against the child. So the 2,000 that the child will get, the child will only be able to get that if he apply for social relief of distress. Because on the social relief of distress, that's when, in terms of the verification, we'll verify through the banks the income checks, whether there's consistent money that comes through the bank. So that application will happen when we deal with the SRT grant. But on the normal grant, it's mainly the primary caregiver that we means test. The others we don't means test. My team will add on that your question. Slowly. Yeah, Slowly. We'll have to some of the information we'll definitely investigate, because what we do normally every month when we push the payment batches, we pay everybody. We pay everybody. That's why we say that we just introduce the fourth day as a review, as one of the days that we need to review, and those people must come forward. We have not experienced a situation where someone has been verified and not be paid. I think we are very easy to get the contact of this beneficiary so that we investigate what actually happens. But normally when we verify the people, and if the person no longer qualify in terms of the legislation that I've read, will definitely suspend the grant. But at this stage, there hasn't been any that we've suspended. So some of the cases we just need to check what could have transpired. That's why we even released those payments, even if we have flagged those people that were supposed to come for reviews. But even after they have not came forward, because the law doesn't allow us to suspend immediately, so we had to release the money and then they got the money. The only delay that you picked up, it's when people went on the normal days. Yet we have already communicated that for those ones that are flagged, that are targeted for review, because the indication is that they have some form of employment. And if they have some form of employment, it means they do have money. So we only introduce additional day of payment so that it's a strategy to pull them to come in and at least review them. So we can at least, if they ask those individuals, we can follow each individual case and check what actually transpired. Yes, I think I've already indicated on how we should manage the queues. We did understood that a lot of beneficiaries come forward to SASSA offices, and some of the beneficiaries that come are the ones that did not necessarily receive the notification, but because of panic, they then have to come in. But we have since adjusted our business processes, including allocating, reassigning some additional officials just to focus on the review project. And then we also brought in we're bringing in additional people as to the hotspot offices where we think we should manage the queue. But importantly, as I indicated here, we're working around the clock to activate the self-application platform, where we want our beneficiaries just to review their information on the click of the button without them walking to the SASSA offices. Yeah, I think you will have seen, as Brenton come forward to me, you will have seen that in the last statement that we have issued, we flagged about 210,000. That's the data that we have received, where they actually, it's important that we need to review them, because it has reflected that they could be working and they could be having extra income. So those are the numbers out of the 19 million. We pay 19 million beneficiaries, and we pay them every month without any disturbance. We just had to look at this segment that we need to call them for review. Yeah, I think Brenton, we can add. Thank you.
Thanks, CEO, and good morning, everyone. So I think one of the key questions that was asked is how is income that is generally regarded as maintenance treated? I think three journalists asked that question. So it's the same. So I think what CEO mentioned, it's important that the social grants aren't treated the same as SRD. We don't just check bank accounts and based on what is in your bank account, make a decision whether you qualify or not. With the grants, you would go through a process, so whether it's at the point of application, you'd bring in 3 months bank statements, and you'd sit down with someone and you'd work through every item on that bank account statement to determine, and the beneficiary will tell you, this money comes from this person, this comes from this source, this comes from that source, and at the end of the day, the beneficiary then signs an affidavit with all those statements saying this is what the income is for. Now, in terms of the social assistance regulations, maintenance is considered as income, but the beneficiary will be able to tell you based on their 3-month statements, you'll be able to see the regularity of that, and you can then say, well, okay, because the grants are assessed on an annual income, so whatever you take the 3-month statements and you extrapolate and then you agree with the beneficiary, this is how much you would receive for maintenance for a period of a year. On the question around the child, if the beneficiary says, well, this is maintenance I'm getting from the mother or the father of the child, for the purpose of the child, that would then go into assessing the child support grant that the beneficiary may also be receiving. So the grandmother could be receiving a child support grant, but if the mother is supporting or the father supporting the child, giving the money to the granny, that money would be considered in the application for the child support grant, but not for the application of the older person's grant if the granny applied for the older person's grant as well, unless obviously she states in the affidavit that she's also receiving regular maintenance support from her children But again, it's a process where you sit down with your grant administrator and you work through your bank statements, you record everything, and you write an affidavit saying what the money is for, and then the basis of that you will then be assessed on whether you qualify. It's also important to note that qualifying criteria, especially for the older persons grants, is quite high. It's over 7,000 rands a month. So if you're getting 2,000 or 3,000 rands support from your children, it's unlikely that you will be disqualified purely on the basis of support, unless obviously you've got other income, such as a pension fund, etc., that's also contributing to your income. I think that is most of the questions. Theo did mention, maybe just to also mention, CEO mentioned we've got data for about 210,000, but we haven't put everyone on review. So we're also scheduling the reviews we're doing. So we'll spread that out over the course of the year. It's a little bit too early. We just started with it, sending out the first rounds in June. We're still analyzing the data to see how many people have actually come forward. We probably have, by the end of July, be able to put out better statistics in terms of how many people have come forward from the first group of people that we've put on review, and how many have been, based on the reviews, how many grants continue, how many grants were cancelled, and so forth. But we've, as Theo also mentioned, we haven't suspended anybody as yet. But if clients do not come forward within a certain designated period, which is defined in the social assistance legislation, after we've notified them that they need to come forward for a review, then they would be suspended on the basis that they've not come forward for the review, and not necessarily on the basis of whether they qualify. So the terms in the Social Assistance Act is to say, if you've been notified to do a review and you don't come forward within a certain period to do a review, then SASSA must suspend you until such time that you do the review. But at present, we've not passed those thresholds yet, and nobody has been suspended. Thanks.
The issue of the biometric, like I say, I've missed it a bit, but we and the self-service platform, the self platform, it will help our people, because we are busy. Remember, on the SRD application, we've already built an online application system. So already there's a verification that happens, especially people who don't have data, who stays in different areas. But we have made sure that two things happen. We have deployed the self-kiosk in some of our offices, so that they just walk in and assist themselves there. And then there's also a self-verification that happens there through their cell phones when they take their picture and their ID matched against Home Affairs. So those are some of the things that we're doing. So we're also working with the community leaders in instances where, especially councillors, in instances where there's a deep rural areas, and this person wants to apply, but they don't have data, they don't have everything. Our leadership assists them to do that. Over and above that, we have this outreach community that we do, or community engagement, which we call it ICROP. We normally visit these areas. We've got a plan that we visit all these rural areas to make sure that we bring services to the people. So my colleagues, I think, can add on what I haven't really captured. Thank you very much.
Okay, so firstly, let me apologize. I made a mistake when I quoted the older person's means test and said 7,000. My colleague corrected me. It's 8,990. So it's almost 9,000. So it's quite a high threshold for the old age grant. The issue around income or work and employment, I hear what you're saying, it's vague, but you can also imagine there's an infinite number of scenarios that can happen. So it's not a case of we can tell you what are the jobs that people are employed in. There's hundreds of thousands of different types of jobs. The key thing here is a beneficiary came to us, said, I'm unemployed, I don't have income. And then they went somewhere else and they said to that person, because they wanted to buy a product or service or get a loan, I am employed and I have income. And now we have a mismatch, and we're just trying to resolve the mismatch. Beneficiary has to come forward and tell us, well, what is this income or what is this employment you told this other person about? maybe you still qualify because, like you said, those thresholds for us are quite high, but maybe you don't. And so that is what we're trying to do, is iron those types of issues out. CEO addressed the issue around capacity. Just to mention the reviews that we've scheduled for this year. So we've mentioned some numbers, but we're looking overall, and we haven't yet put all of them in the system. We're looking overall at putting about 300,000 reviews, and that's more or less within our capacity. That's about 15% of our capacity. And as CEO mentioned, we do reviews every single year. It's not a new thing that we're doing. It's something that we do build in. But the difficult thing is it's managing the month to month to make sure we don't get 1 month. For example, in June we didn't have too many people coming in, except in KZN and some 1 or 2 offices in the Free State, and then July we were swamped. So we have to then rebalance to say, okay, let's slow down for August. Let's make sure everyone's first cleared out of the system and had an opportunity to do the reviews before we schedule any further reviews, and maybe then pick up the pace again a bit later. So again, it is a little bit dynamic. It depends when people do eventually come in. And one often finds that people will come in on the last month when they're about to be suspended, which is also why we introduced the 4th payment cycle, because often people only find out that they've been scheduled for a review when the grant is suspended, which is then too late because that month your grant was suspended. We can't reinstate you. Whereas what we're trying to do is with the 4th payment cycle is that everyone who's on that, it should send an alert or signal to them that there's something wrong with their grant. They should contact the SASSA office and find out what they need to do. And we were hoping that that would bring in more numbers earlier so that we don't then get the sort of bottlenecks that get created in the system. And obviously we're still evaluating that and seeing how, if it's working, if it's not working, what else can we do to try and communicate to beneficiaries to try and get the process a little bit more smooth, as opposed to the sort of creating congestion. With self-service, I think it's important to also note we're not targeting the most vulnerable beneficiaries for review purposes. We're targeting those who we suspect have income or some other kind of sources, and those are generally your beneficiaries who may have access to technology. And that, so hopefully, and we're not also saying you must use that portal. So we're just making it available so that if you don't want to come into a SASSA office, you have your self-help portals available to you to be able to use it. But the SASSA office will always still be there. I know CEO won't like that, but my preference is to have the one-on-one, because here you're dealing with complicated. So we're not dealing with the beneficiary has a very straightforward economic history. You're dealing with someone that has sources of income, or even sometimes multiple sources of income. So it does help a little bit when you're sitting with someone and you're asking the questions, what is this on your income statement or on your bank statement? What is this? What is that? And you get them to sign an affidavit saying what everything is. The self-help services could be a little bit more challenging because you're not dealing with the person, dealing with someone in person. So you'll get someone assessing whatever you submit and then sending you an email back saying, please answer this question, that question, that question, and then if the person doesn't answer, it hangs for a while. But yes, that are options we want to provide to people, because obviously the less people that come through our doors, the less congestion there is. Also noting we have to provide normal new application services as well, and we don't want to cause a disruption in the new grants application processes because too many people are coming in for reviews. I think that's it for a second.
Thanks, Brenton and CEO Phahle and Fanny. Colleagues, I think we have come to brainwave. Okay, let me open for you, colleagues. I'm generous today, it's Monday.
All right, those are all proceedings coming out of that media briefing, and in a nutshell, as you heard there, maintenance is considered an income. And you heard there that some of the SASSA beneficiaries will be going under review, and being a maintenance beneficiary, also receiving some sort of income, will put you in a position where you're possibly not eligible to be a SASSA beneficiary anymore. And some of the flagged payments, of course, are coming to the fore there, but most importantly, the organization just ironing out some of those nitty-gritties around the review process that they are heading towards.